Welcome to the Rich with Purpose podcast, the finance podcast that's about more than just money. I'm your host, Boyds and Rasaya, financial advisor to hundreds of successful clients over the years. In each episode of this show, I speak with other experts in the complex world of money and finance, and together we discuss how you can ensure you make smart decisions with your money. Even more importantly, how to connect those decisions with your values and your purpose in order to achieve everything that is most important to you. Please note that everything we discuss is not personal advice, but general in nature. For the full disclaimer, please visit our website, richwithpurpose.com.au, where you can also register your details to get access to all our free resources. And please hit subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. In episode 13, I speak to Matthew Boyd. Matt is the co-founder and CEO of Vollie, an online marketplace focused on connecting volunteers to not-for-profits. What I love about Matt is his quest to create social impact, not only through his own work, but also in supporting others wanting to make a difference in the world. In this episode, we explore the concepts of social impact and volunteering. We discuss the challenges we all face in trying to figure out what is important to us, how we can challenge society's status quo to truly work out what we want to do in the world, and therefore get closer to gaining a level of personal fulfilment. We explore volunteering, the benefits and why people like giving back. We also talk about the challenges and why it can feel very hard for a lot of people to get started in volunteering. Did you know 90% of people would like to give back, but only 30% of people do it? And make sure you listen to the end, where Matt tells us all about Vollie, the social enterprise designed to make volunteering easier for both volunteers and not-for-profits. So if you're interested in learning about the impact of giving back through volunteering, you will enjoy this episode of the Rich with Purpose podcast. Welcome to the Rich with Purpose podcast, Matthew Boyd.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Matt, one of the reasons I wanted to get you on is, this is a podcast about purpose. One of the things that we know after talking to and helping hundreds of people over the years is that, we talk about money, we deal with money issues, but at the end of the day, life isn't about money. Money is often just a tool to help people achieve things that are important to them. And one of the things that is important to a lot of people is having an impact in the world, giving back, helping other people is something not important to everybody, but it is something that's important to a lot of people. And with your background in Vollie and setting up a volunteering platform, I was just really keen to have a chat to you about how we can share with listeners a bit about what that might look like, this concept of volunteering or giving back in the way that you know it through your lens. So, I'm going to really enjoy talking about all of that. But before we get into that, firstly, can you tell me a little bit about how you got into the area of social impact or social responsibility and purpose and these sorts of things? How did you get into this space?
Yeah, I studied marketing. I practiced it for the best part of a decade. I thought when I was younger, that's all I wanted to do. Run big brands and their advertising campaigns and do lots of exciting stuff in the world of marketing. But after I'd done most of what you could do in the marketing space in terms of running big TV multi-million-dollar campaigns and running halftime activations at the MCG and everything in between, I did a lot of fun stuff in the marketing space. But what was really interesting and a little bit surprising for me was that I wasn't fulfilled. If I was really honest with myself, I wasn't jumping out of bed in the morning. I wasn't as enthusiastic about what I was doing as I really should be, given that, just how much of our lives is dedicated to the work that we do, the career that we have. And so I started to ask myself questions. And I realized that what really matters to me is trying to make a positive difference in the world. I'm not driven by money. I obviously want to be comfortable. I want to pay my bills. I want to be able to provide, but I've never been driven by just making money. I've been driven by the fulfillment of the role in which I'm doing. And so the first thing I did was just expose myself to a lot of the stuff that's going on in the world, a lot of negativity. It's a beautiful world that we live in, but there are so many desperately sad situations around issues with the environment, cruelty, whether it's with animals or whether we're looking at inequality, whether we're looking at the way in which people live in less developed countries. And there are just so many unfair situations. And through watching documentaries and clips online and reading a lot of articles, I really shocked my system in terms of just how many problems there are in the world. And the first thing that did was made me feel very overwhelmed, because I just thought, well, I can't solve all of these problems. I don't have the time. I don't have the capacity, the capability. But that led me down this rabbit hole. And from there, that next step was, well, I want to do something. So then that led me into volunteering to actually get started, and find an opportunity to just give it a go, just try and just give it a crack. And that started with seeing a TV segment around how the Lort Smith Animal Hospital and the Royal Children's Hospital had partnered, and they were encouraging dog owners to visit kids in wards. I've got 2 cavoodles. They're essentially real life teddy bears. And so that was the first step for me. It took a long time to get started. We had to go through a lot of checks and so on, but that was the starting point for me in terms of actually doing something, rather than just reading articles and feeling sad and wishing I could do more. I'm about action, and I'm an impatient person, so I needed to get started on this journey. And so that was the first step for me.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thanks for sharing it, because it's, I think, as I said in the beginning, I think, money is important. Some of us do have ambitions about being rich or whatever, or that's what we think we want. I'm pretty comfortable to say that, again, when the work that we do with people to do with their money, as financial advisors, everything's to do with their money. But the more we help people with their money, the more we realize how little the money itself is important. It all links back to other things, and that's totally why this whole podcast talks about those other things. And we spend a significant amount of our time with our clients on helping them understand those other things, and what are the things that actually give us fulfillment, I guess, in a way. And so, really appreciate you sharing that journey of challenging yourself. It's not an easy thing to do. The normal thing that the normal journey, I suppose, is that we go through life. There's a plan. There is a traditional path that we, could go along, and there's nothing wrong with that either. But what you did, and perhaps it was, maybe you were fortunate to have that experience. I'm sure you tell yourself that, or you feel fortunate that you did that for yourself, because it just opened up your eyes and helped you connect with what's really important. There was actually a very interesting podcast I listened to just this week, and it was, I'm not going to try and quote it or anything like that, but because I'm sure I'll miss something. But there was a concept around, rather than the best way to get fulfillment is to try and remove all our preconceived ideas about what we could, can be doing. And if we're able to remove any impediments and truly creatively expand our minds and think about how we can invent what would truly give us fulfillment, or however you define that. So everyone's different. That's the only way to do it, because we will always, as humans, automatically anchor to something, limit ourselves based on our experiences, our upbringings, our the things that we've been through, our belief systems that are ingrained. And if we can try and remove those things in our thought process when trying to figure out what we want to be doing, it's almost the only way to do it, is what this guy out of the US was talking about, which was really interesting. And it sounds like you were able to do that to a certain extent.
Yeah, and to that point, I from my experience in life today, I believe that if you take money out of the equation, would you be doing what you're doing? And the answer should be yes. It's obviously, it becomes increasingly hard as we get older, and we're responsible for families and mortgages and so on. And so it might be more of an idealistic, like a 20-something, proposition that you would put to yourself. But I think it's relevant to anybody at any stage of their life, because it is important that what we do, we really enjoy. And I've asked myself that question 100 times over the last 5 years on the journey with Vollie, and it's been 4 years of operation. Taking the money out of the equation, and in the startup space, that's pretty easy to do in the earlier stages because there isn't a lot of it, and you're not making a great deal of money. But taking money out of the equation, would you be doing what you're doing? The answer has been yes for me for the last few years. And what's interesting about that is, and it'd be interesting to see if you agree, but when people do what they really should be doing, what they're really passionate about, arguably they do a much better job. And regardless of whether it's a mainstream career like in the finance space or whatever, or if it's more of a niche, like you're going to be a painter, but if you are the best, that's what you are best at, then arguably you can actually make the most amount of money through doing that, as long as you're true to yourself. So it's just something that's rattled around in my head for quite a few years. And I, for me personally, I find it incredibly important to love what you do, to know that you would do it even if there was no money involved. And that then helps me to be the best at what I do, which I believe will, the money is coming with the various with Vollie and the social enterprise that I've been building over the last few years. But there's a few years there of asking yourself the question around that, and making sure you're in the right space based on what you're good at and what you care about.
Yeah, we did touch on this in the episode we had with Carl Richards. Really good episode if you want to check that out. Carl Richards writes in the New York Times every week. Fascinating guy. One of our earlier episodes. And one of the things that we did talk about is that there is, what we're talking about may not apply to everybody, because assuming, from a money perspective, once you've got the basics sorted out, then you can put aside the money. Again, I don't know if you'd agree with that. Some people are still able to do it, but I think for most people, once you've got the basics, and everyone's got to define what they mean by the basics: roof over your head, feed the family, these sorts of things. And I guess depending on the responsibilities you've already got in your life, then that also changes things. So it is different for everyone. But I think that approach of taking the money out of the equation is super important. It's one of those barriers that stops us from thinking creatively and laterally, because it is a very obvious barrier to achieving certain things. So it's super important to think laterally, and that will enable you to at least understand what is possible or what may be possible. And then you obviously have to put the practical things across it and fit that in with what is important to you and your family and what you want to do. But at least it allows you to think that way. So, as I always say, you can have anything you want. You just can't usually have everything. And often you have to make choices. For some people, that's choices between having a big house and, from a financial planning perspective, which we obviously do with people. Sometimes that choice is, having a big house or private schooling or, increasing work or spending more time with family, or working longer, retiring early, all these they're kind of the normal things that we talk about. But I think where we're going is we can even have choices around, is it more important for us to impress other people with the stuff that we've got? Or is it more important to get a warm, fuzzy feeling by changing the lives of other people? Now I've said that really quickly and off the cuff, which makes it sound simple, but when you really think through those things, it's a challenging thought, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And that whole keeping up the Joneses, so it's never appealed to me. I've never been materialistic, but I understand the pressures of people who might be living in a nice suburb. And I think education is an incredibly important thing, and more important than having a big house, providing your kids with a great education and the best opportunity possible. But you might drive to school every day, and or all the other parents driving around in Range Rovers, and you've got a Volkswagen Tiguan, and nothing against those because I drive one. But you're thinking like, it'd be nice to be able to drive up, in a nicer car. And I think it comes back to just having the respects of others. And I think it's kind of, there's a bit of a mismatch there, because I think the respect of others is incredibly important. I think many of us, certainly for me, respect is important. I want to be respected. I want to do the best I can do and work as hard as I can. And if that can gain the respect of people in my industry, then that's worth its weight in gold to me. Having a car that was, made in the last few years, yeah, you might get people saying, "Oh, nice car," but is that the same as the respect you get from, a career that's really fulfilling to you, and that people think, wow, that's incredible that you started that from absolutely nowhere? They could be quite different things. So yeah, it's interesting, and we're all different, but at the end of the day, I think you should only be looking to, or first and foremost, to please yourself from a, being a good person and being authentic, working hard. I think these are the fundamentals of starting from that point is a very good place to be. Doing things to get the respect of others, or doing things for the sake of that, doing things for the sake of, impressing others, it could arguably lead you off course of, where perhaps your life and your career should be going.
Yeah, and I mean, we're talking about social impact and volunteering and those sorts of areas, which doesn't need to be something that's important to everyone. And, pleasing other people might be something that is important to a lot of people. And from my perspective, this isn't a judgment. It's if that's important to you, then understand that that's important to you, and think about it proactively, that is important, and that you're putting that ahead of other things. And if that's your genuine position, then, you own it, and that's okay. I think and the message we've had in a number of other episodes is that the default is that if you don't think about what is actually important to you, then the default that we all do as humans is we think, well, if I don't know what's important to me, then I'll just get more money and that'll make me happy. And we know that is definitely not the way we work. We don't get fulfillment when we have more stuff. So I think, if anything, rather than landing on that default, one message to take away for everyone is just, think about what are the things that are most important to you. And if impressing other people with the stuff you have is important to you, then that's okay. But make sure that that's okay, because the thing that I don't like seeing is when people we talk to say, we're looking back and really not happy with our lives because we made choices that we didn't realize we were making because we didn't think about it enough.
Yeah. And I think to that point, what's interesting, so the point needs to be made that it's really hard for a lot of people, arguably most people, to figure out what they truly should be doing. That's very much the case with me. So there are certain people that from a very young age, they want to be a fireman, or they want to be a vet, or they want to be a doctor or a lawyer. They just know. And that's their goal, and that's what they work towards. And then they start that career, and hopefully then it lives up to all of the expectation. But for me, even by the age of 30, I was still wondering, like, what is it I want to do? What is it that is going to make me happy and light a fire inside of me? I had a terrible career counselor in high school. I think I may have had one session with her, no more than two. Absolutely useless, gave me no guidance at all. So to figure out what it is that you want to do, it's so hard. It's really, really hard, particularly when you're so busy personally and professionally, and you think, I don't even have the time to think about this. So a default would be, we'll just make lots of money, work very hard, choose a career where I can make lots of money, and, I can have that car that I want, I can live in this house. And it certainly gives you more security, and that takes the pressure and the stress off. But yeah, it's really hard to figure out what it is that you're good at. And I think the best way to start that journey and ultimately figure it out is just to try stuff. If you've always thought, I've always wondered, would I be a good painter? Or, I've always wanted to take a dance class, or whatever it is, you then just got to, you just got to try and just figure it out. But yeah, I feel like that's a big barrier for a lot of people, just being like, well, I don't know what makes me happy. I don't know the career that is perfect for me.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, man. I mean, yeah, a lot of people would look at you, I'd look at you and say, you've got it worked out, what makes you tick and what drives you. But as we've talked about, you said you still question things and wonder, is this really the thing? And you probably change what you're going to be doing and what's going to give you fulfillment over time. So I think that's very true. There was someone else I was listening to where they were talking about that there's very, very, very few people that have a genuine calling. Maybe Mozart, he had a calling, there was something that he needed to do in the world. There are other people now that you could look back on and say, maybe they did, but even then I was thinking, people like Mother Teresa, maybe she knew that that's what she wanted to do, but I'm sure she also went through this thing of, is it a real calling, or is it something that I've figured out that I want to do? And I think what he was saying was that most people, 99% of people, don't have a calling. There's nothing there that you were born to do. Apart from this handful of people. But because of that, we need to invent what our calling is. We need to invent what our fulfillment is, and that's totally okay. But as you said, by trying things, and as I said, by first just thinking about it, taking away the things that have put us on the path we're on now. And when I say take them away, when we're thinking about it, don't just think, yeah, but I'm in this situation, therefore. Actually taking away those things in your mind and going, what would I like to try? Is it trying to dance? Is it becoming a painter? Is it, what are these things? And it's really the only true way to invent the thing that is going to give you that fulfillment or find that calling. Because it's so hard, right?
It is. And two things that come to mind from what you just said there. One, comparing yourself to others is one of the worst things you can do, because everybody, you could look at me and think, oh, okay, so he's been focused on this social enterprise business and it's growing well. He must have it all figured out. I'm a bag of doubt and fears, and and we all are. So to compare yourself to others, to look at somebody else and think they've got it together, none of us have it all together. It's a work in progress. We're all working progresses. So one, comparing yourself to others is terrible. And two, something I've learned, I love to read autobiographies. I love to learn from others, whether it's Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, Keith Richards, Phil Collins, Michael Caine, Andre Agassi, across various different spectrums. What you learn from every single autobiography that you read is that they all go through many, many failures before they figure it out. There are years of getting it wrong before they start getting it right. So you could look at an Elon Musk, or you could look at a Mother Teresa, or whoever it is, and think, wow, look at them, they've got it together. One, they don't. They're still figuring it out. But two, it takes years to get to that point, and this whole thing around 10,000 hours to master your craft, breaking that down. And I've been working incredibly hard over the last 5 years pursuing what I'm passionate about with Vollie, and this idea that was just in my head 5 years ago. Clocking up the hours I've done today, I think I'm at 8,000 or 9,000 hours, something like that. I've still got a fair way to go before I hit the 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
Even then, I haven't mastered my craft. I've just gotten to a point where I'm proficient enough. But we just got to look internally and ask ourselves that question, which goes back to what we were saying before, and it's just what is it that's going to make me happy? What is it that I can do really well, and not better than anyone else in the world, but really well and better than most, and that can add some real value to the world. And so looking inward is much better than looking outward constantly and wondering, what are they doing? And just it can just create unnecessary stress and anxiety, I think.
Oh, it's so true, right? And I spoke about this in episode 11 with Vanessa Bennett, and the whole issue with social media. And I try to really make a conscious effort, not, we're on social media. Some of us have removed ourselves. I'm still on there. And I try to make it a point whenever I see anything on social media to remember that remind myself that it's curated, because our automatic thing with social media is everyone's portraying themselves. They want to be portrayed. Not everyone. Some are very, and I don't want to use the word authentic. What does that even mean? But, we're not putting stuff on social media when it's the most difficult times in our lives. Most of us aren't. But it's curated in some way, so it's never a reflection of someone else's true life. But in terms of the impact on ourselves, it makes you feel a certain way. If we're genuine, it makes you feel a certain way when you see someone else in this curated manner. It is you automatically reflect on yourself when you see these things, and being conscious of that's really important, because as you said, we all struggle with lots and lots of things, and it doesn't matter how good we might appear on the outside, even if it doesn't matter how true to yourself you're trying to be, we're always there's a persona that other people have of us. So yeah, I think that's an important point. On the autobiographies, similar point actually is that one thing I know with autobiographies, if it's all nice in an autobiography, it's probably not a good autobiography. You want to hear, that you're getting something real. If they're talking about some pretty bad, difficult stuff, that's when it's a good autobiography, as I'm sure having read so many.
I completely agree. Yeah, I was disappointed with Arnold Schwarzenegger's autobiography for that reason. I thought, he's obviously had an amazing life, but there's literally 2 sentences in that autobiography about steroid use, and it's like, come on, mate, like you were the biggest guy in the world, and you're not talking about the ugly stories of getting into the gym early and injecting in a real dirty sort of environment, and then going to train. There's literally a few sentences in it saying, yes, I did take steroids during that period in my life. I deeply regret it. I wish I hadn't. And then moving on, it's like, you haven't been genuine enough there.
No.
I was speaking with someone just yesterday who read Mariah Carey's autobiography, and they highly recommended it. And I was like, that's not an autobiography I think I'd ever read. But what they loved about it was, I mean, you wouldn't know this looking at Mariah Carey, but it's like she came from a rough upbringing, and her sister was a prostitute, and there was her mixed race family, mother and father, dealt with a great deal of racism, and that really impacted her in a lot of different ways. And you just want that genuine story. And going back to what you're saying about social media, and I'm basically off of it. I don't have an Instagram. Vollie does. I'm on Facebook, but I can't tell you the last time I posted, probably a couple of years ago. I'm on LinkedIn because I still think that's valuable professionally, but I'm basically off social media because I recognize in myself as soon as I'm on one of these platforms, they're very smart, and they have you like zombie scrolling, like, and it's like 30 seconds later, I'm like, God, they got me. I've got to get off this thing. But it also just creates this negativity, this envy, and this, sad sort of reflection on your own life and stuff. And as you say, people don't post when they're like really challenging day to day. They're like on a dog walk and the sun's shining by the beach, and they might be having a terrible time, but it's not a true reflection. And I just think it's toxic. And I think for young people, with my young daughter, who's only one, but kids these days who are like in their teenage years, like, my God, it must be such a different world compared to what I grew up in with those. It's just this bombardment of communications, and a lot of them are just hot air. And it's incredibly challenging. I think people are becoming more and more aware of the dangers, and I think there will be this increasing exodus from social media. I think there will be new platforms that emerge that challenge Facebook and Instagram and so on. But we're certainly in a period of time now with technology where you have to be incredibly disciplined, because otherwise it can really start to run your life.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it could be kind of peaking, where there's more people are using social media than ever before, but there is also people talking about these sorts of things. Be careful about it. It's not this great thing. It's not just this great thing. Be conscious, get off it. Don't be on it too much. And, a lot more discussion about the negativity of it seems to be growing just to help people. Right. So, it'll be interesting to see where that goes. Now, we've probably gone totally off topic, but loved the chat. Hopefully it's valuable for everyone listening. What I do want to talk about, Matt, is this concept of giving back and volunteering. You've been involved in that very heavily, particularly over the last 4 or 5 years, with the advent of your platform and online volunteering system, Vollie. Can you tell us a bit about your perspective on volunteering? And why do people volunteer? What's the whole point of volunteering?
Yeah, volunteering is a very, very powerful thing, for a few reasons. One, it's the feel-good factor that you can get from volunteering, from sharing your time to support a cause, hopefully that you care about, and look to make a difference. That there is no such thing, in my opinion, as a truly selfless act, but volunteering can be selfless, but it can also be very, very fulfilling. So that feel-good factor, and there's studies around volunteering that show and prove to a large extent that when you volunteer, when you give back, it can increase your levels of happiness, reduce stress, helps you sleep better at night. So there's really powerful personal benefits from volunteering. Going a step further, this is something that Volley's very focused around, is the professional development that can come from volunteering. So when we're looking at people in various different stages of their career, you might be a student looking for that first bit of work experience to go on your LinkedIn profile that helps you get that job in 6 months' time. You may be 3 or 4 years into your career and you're looking to support a charity that gives you sort of that added level of responsibility that perhaps you're not getting in your current career role, and so sort of proving that you can sort of step up to that next level. People who have been made redundant, which has obviously been happening a lot in the last 12 months. It's great to keep your skills fresh and relevant. And then if you're just generally killing it in your career, to support a charity along with being a consultant or a COO or whatever it might be, it just adds that extra dimension to your work experience in your LinkedIn profile. And it might lead to you joining a board of a charity. So whatever stage you're at in your career, it's incredible for professional development as well. So they're two of the biggest reasons I think volunteering is such an incredible thing for people to do.
Yeah, I mean, just that concept of giving back, right? And I guess the other thing that most people don't think about is the even people that are retiring or looking for that next change later in their life. There's a lot of experience that people can share by volunteering. But again, as you say, there's a lot you can learn, having been in a particular career or done very well in a particular field to the point where you're now retiring. There's still so much you can learn about technology or working with other volunteers or different demographics, different age groups. And I guess that's one thing that Vollie definitely helps with, is aligning people where they can use the skills that they've already got to volunteer. But I guess there's that secondary thing where you can also learn something new or give your time. And
definitely. And what you just said there about people, reaching or approaching that retirement age. Yeah. And it's that sort of ageism within our society, isn't it? Where it's like, well, we need to bring in fresh blood, but my God, this person who, however old they are, like 50s, 60s, what they have experienced and what they've achieved through their career, like how valuable is it to connect that person with, a young CEO of a children's charity who knows a fair bit of what they're doing, but that level of experience that retiree can provide is hugely valuable. I have this conversation. I know a number of great people within Rotary, and you get a lot. There's a wealth of experience in Rotary, and some people are nowhere near retirement, others are. And I speak a lot with Rotary about the connection of Rotarians with young social entrepreneurs, the energy, the enthusiasm, but a lack of experience. And so those connections are just massive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's that film, that movie recent. It's a pretty mainstream movie from a few years ago with Anne Hathaway and Robert De Niro, where De Niro comes in as this old guy to a young startup company that Anne Hathaway runs, and everyone's laughing at him and thinking, who's this old guy? Sorry?
Yeah. The intern.
The intern, that's right. And by the end of it, everyone around him has realised, geez, this guy knows a thing or two.
Yeah. I love that movie. Yeah.
So I guess that takes us to what's the volunteer landscape like in Australia anyway.
It's interesting because typical trends we see within the volunteering space are older generations volunteer at twice the rate of younger generations. So there's this mentality of get established within your career and then give back. But what's interesting is we're now living in a world where Gen Y and Gen Z have this desire to change the world to a much greater level than we've ever experienced before. And that prioritization of what this young and developing workforce, which now account for over 60% of our workforce, look for in their career, get what they get paid, is dropping down the list from sort of number one, where it obviously would be, I do a job, I want to get paid as much as possible. It's dropping down the list to sort of fifth or sixth. What's up there is a sense of purpose, being able to work for an organization that really cares about the environment, a positive culture, and so on. So there's clearly a desire for younger generations to want to make a difference and volunteer, but it hasn't translated enough into the stats around who's volunteering. And so that's one of the big reasons I wanted to start Vollie, because I wanted to create a platform for everyone, but particularly create a platform where you volunteer online around your busy schedule in a convenient way, using technology which allows you to apply within a few clicks, rather than filling out forms, going to induction days, that longer drawn out process that's usually involved to get started with volunteering. So yeah, we've got that situation. We've also got a situation where less than 30% of Aussies volunteer. Whereas if you were to survey most people, you'd probably find, and we've done a fair bit of research ourselves, sort of 90% of people would say to you, given the opportunity, I would love to give back. I would love to support a cause that I care about, and particularly with my skills. So it's like you've got the desire there, but you've just got a very low uptake. And a big part of that is just, it's hard to get started volunteering. It's hard to find that opportunity, which I've worked incredibly hard with my team to to look to combat and provide an easy, quick solution to say, this is what I'm good at, this is what I care about, here are opportunities where I can make a difference.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think you're like when you're just talking about the generations, and it sounds like younger, the Gen Y, Gen Z generations, there's definitely this, desire to change the world and that sort of thing, which is awesome. I guess I would reflect on that and say it's because, and am I Gen X? I think I'm Gen X, where even Gen X, we're so fortunate we haven't had to do it as tough as our parents. I genuinely believe that. We've had economic boom, the opportunities that we all have relative to generations before us, because of technology, because of the economy going so well. That's enabled us to think more about giving back. And yeah, I don't like that concept of, young people want to change the world. Older people or older generations, don't. But it's interesting that you say that most volunteers are actually from the older generations that are established. So they're actually taking more action on it, which, does that mean that we want to, younger generations want to change the world, but are not willing to do what they need to do it, or it's not easy enough, or it gets in the way of other things that are important in their life, which I guess is like all of us. It's like everyone.
Yeah, it's a very complex topic to unpack. And there's a lot of factors, there's a lot of moving parts to it. I am the biggest advocate for volunteering, but I must say that it's very hard to get started with volunteering. It's not made easy enough, unfortunately. And
what makes it so hard? Like, why is it so hard?
There's a lot of barriers to entry. You need your working with children check, you need your police check, you need to fill out this form, you need to come to an induction day. And there's breakdown in communication time and time again between the charity and the volunteer. Charities are guilty of not clearly articulating their needs at times, and volunteers are guilty of not committing to the tasks at hand. And so I think the way we combat that is to streamline the process, and I think technology can play a really important role there. But I also think a charity clearly scoping the requirement that they have initially is important, so that the volunteer knows what's required, when it needs to be completed by, so that everybody's accountable. Charities, once they find a great marketing volunteer, don't want to let go of that person. And then that volunteer might sign up to help this particular children's charity thinking, oh yeah, and I'll do that for a little bit. And then all of a sudden, 12 months later, 2 years later, they're still volunteering with the charity. They don't have the time anymore, but they feel too bad to quit. And so it's not a particularly fair situation on either party. So I think charities needing to more clearly scope what their requirements are, in line with the gig economy, where we're becoming more and more used to project-based work, clear start and end dates to it, but also in a way that fits into this age of convenience and personalization, and this whole digital age where, you want to go to a platform and be shown opportunities that are aligning with your skill sets and what you really care about. So yeah, the whole space just needs to evolve, because when I was very early on this journey with Vollie just in my head and hadn't built anything yet, I'm hearing charities wanting to engage younger volunteers wanting to volunteer and make the world a better place, and me just scratching my head, just like,
what's going on?
Are they speaking? Why aren't they talking to each other?
Yeah. What the hell's going on? Yeah. Which is very true, right? It's what you've described is so true. Like, there are things that we go, oh, yep, I want to do that, but it just seems all too hard. It's so, I'll give you a good example. Just with COVID and all that sort of thing that we've been through, which has been a difficult time, but we've got stuff that we have, which is still good at home, which we don't like to just throw everything out, but donating things. But even that's a good example where I can think of. It feels really hard to give stuff to people that might want it or that might need it.
How many times I've been rejected by the Salvos and others, bringing stuff in, and they're just like, no, you can't donate this, you can't donate that. It translates to volunteering in that somebody sends an inquiry to a charity, spends 30 minutes composing a cover letter to say, hi, so I'm a senior X position at an organization, and I can provide Z list of skills, and they never hear back because the charity sector is overworked, undervalued, underpaid for what they actually do, cash poor, time poor. It's a really challenging situation. And so, yes, they are guilty of not responding, but you can completely understand it given the incredibly challenging situation that they operate in. I mean, I know CEOs of big private companies and I know CEOs of charities, and the amount of work that CEOs of charities need to do on a shoestring budget and still perform and get results, it's incredibly hard. So both sides need the support for more connections to happen. And I'm just a big believer in when more people apply their skills, what they're uniquely good at, to support an organization they care about, that's when incredible change can come. And that's where step by step we make the world a better place and a fairer place and a less cruel place. It's just that's what's fueled me for so many years. It's that people power.
Yeah, okay, so perfect segue. I mean, we've talked about the problems with volunteering, why people volunteer. Hopefully our listeners are thinking about it a bit more if it's something that's important to them, along with figuring out what's important to them. But tell us about Vollie. Tell us about the platform. So firstly, it's volley.com.au.
Yeah. So Vollie is an online volunteering platform, where people can connect their skills with charities and causes that they care about. All opportunities are completed remotely from anywhere in the world. So people can complete these project-based tasks around their busy schedule. We have volunteers in their pajamas on a Saturday morning writing a marketing strategy for a cause they really care about, or helping to update a website or create a legal document or write an article. When we think about how much of what we can do remotely these days, I mean, so many of our meetings are run remotely. It makes sense in the style of an Upwork or a freelancer where you connect with skilled people. Completely.
So let's break it down really simply. It inside out because you do it. Yeah. But for all of our listeners who don't know what the hell we're talking about, sure. Volley.com.au might be the only thing they've picked up. Sure. So what Volley's got is, and make sure that you correct all of the things I'm saying correctly. So there's a whole group of charities that have jobs they need doing.
Yeah, we've got over 900 charities now. We have 6 to 12 charities signing up every week. So we're very excited to hit the 1,000 charities over the coming months. Projects. We have close to 200 projects active on our platform at any time. That again is increasing more and more. We've had up to 400 opportunities there, and people jump on Vollie. They put
so before that. So every charity is a genuine charity that has been vetted. They have to be signed up to all the requirements and legals around being recognised as a charity.
Yeah, well, I say charity because there's actually 3 different entities that can post opportunities on Vollie: charities, non-profits, or social enterprise businesses. So purpose-driven organisation. So it could even be a private business, but is working on water sanitation projects in regional Australia. As we actually have one called Swish. So as long as you have a strong purpose, typically we saw a lot of charities and non-profits signing up through the first few years of operation.
Okay, so that's really good to know. So we've got charities, not-for-profits, social enterprises, which importantly have been fully vetted and approved to use the service. Those charities, those organisations don't pay Vollie anything to be on the system, if you like. And so then, if I'm a charity, if I'm one of those organisations, if I'm a charity, what sort of things, what sort of jobs or projects would I be posting to the Vollie system?
Yeah, it's very broad. It could be SEO support. It could be to develop a social media campaign. It could be to help with a particular legal requirement or provide legal advice. It could be to develop some HR policies and procedures documents. Could be to help with their CMS system or update their website. You know, it goes across marketing, legal, HR, IT, even like business strategy and, you know, helping with a business plan. Yeah, very, very broad across all different departments of a business.
Yeah, right. Okay. So then you've got these, I think you said 200 at the moment projects.
900.
Sorry?
Charities, over 900.
900 charities at the moment. Was it 200 or 400 projects or jobs that are posted right now?
Oh, projects, yeah, close to 200. We've just had a real surge in applications, so it was around 300, 350, and we've seen a load of projects recently successfully connected. We've been operational 4 years now. We've seen over 4,000 projects completed through Vollie, over 200,000 skilled volunteering hours, and to date, charities have saved just over $5 million now through the platform. So you work on a project that on average saves a charity over $1,000. Sometimes it's a lot more. That's the impact, you know, that really continues to drive us, because a charity's not spending $10,000 on getting a new website built or $100 on legal advice or whatever it might be. Connecting with existing talent in the market, people who want to make a difference, huge amounts of money can be saved.
Yeah. Okay. So if I'm a volunteer, so I guess first call out, if anyone's involved with a charity, not-for-profit or social enterprise, and you know, all of those organizations have challenges around funding and getting work done, having access to talent, those sorts of things. You know, register with Vollie because you might. It's a great way to get access to volunteers. If you're someone who's interested in volunteering, so if I wanted to do some volunteering, and we've talked about how difficult it is and just getting started, and I just don't know who to start, where to start. I don't know who I'd want to volunteer with. I don't even know the sort of work I want to do in a voluntary capacity, but I just feel like, you know, I should explore this. You know, I should just explore it. So I could get onto Vollie. Register as a volunteer with no cost. No. Is it? So volunteers don't pay anything. So I could go onto volley.com.au, register as a volunteer, no cost, no obligation to do anything. Yeah. And I will then start seeing what?
Yeah, projects. I mean, you don't even need to sign up. I'm a big fan of being able to sort of check out what a platform or a website is all about before, you know, you provide your details. We only capture.
Okay, so you don't even have to register. Yep.
No. Review projects. You know, you can start as widely or as specific with your search, and then just start looking at projects. You can look at the information of the organisation. Oh, that really speaks to my heart. You know, I've always been really passionate about animals or positive mental health or whatever it might be. And then review what's required with the project. There are key deliverables. And if you think to yourself, I can do that. I've got enough experience. I can really help this organization. You apply. From there, you sign up. You add some of your details. As I say, basic information. We're very, very aware of people's feelings around data privacy. And We only capture the information that's relevant for us to sort of manage the whole experience between the volunteer and the charity, and the information that the charity needs to see. You apply for the project, and you add a cover note with your application just to say, hi, charity X, I'm really excited to apply for this project. I think I would be good for this because of these particular reasons. And then, they submit their application. From there, the charity and the volunteer can communicate through Vollie. We've got inbuilt messaging, file sharing. And if the volunteer's accepted, then they complete that task. They might be in Melbourne, the charity might be in Darwin. Doesn't matter. They work on the project, they touch base with the charity for any particular questions they have or any additional information they have. And at the end of the day, work's completed, the charity's better placed, the individual's completed something that makes them feel good. They can request a letter of recommendation, a LinkedIn reference, whatever it might be. And, everybody moves on. We find with Vollie that once people volunteer for the first time who have never done it and always thought about it, quite often they become serial volunteers. They do it once and they think, that was really easy. I've been thinking about that for years and that was great. And then we have people we've got people who are on their 10th, 11th, 12th project on Vollie.
Yeah, wow.
Love it. You get a buzz from it, and it's a really nice, genuine way to feel great about yourself, know that I am good at what I do. I've helped that charity organization. It's so powerful. Volunteering is just such a powerful thing. It's that procrastination or just not knowing how to get started, which combats people getting started more often than not.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And I guess with the variety of things, do you have to have some really strong experience or skill sets on particular things, or are there any more general helping out type jobs?
Yeah, there's different levels of proficiency within a particular area. So, some of our projects really demand expertise. So help us develop a 5-year business plan to ensure that we are, financially sustainable moving forward, which would draw on a lot of different skill sets. But a lot of them are entry level stuff. They might just need some admin support. It might be data entry, just more sort of bite-sized, smaller, less sort of projects that require, less experience. So we work with a number of universities. So far I've described, charities don't pay, volunteers don't pay, and people listening might be thinking how does this business remain sustainable? Considering we're a private business, we're a certified B Corp social enterprise. But the way we generate revenue is through working with businesses and universities. And they become enterprise clients of ours, and we provide impact tracking and a whole host of support there. And by working with universities, we obviously work with a number of students, not just second year, third year students, fourth year sometimes, but some first year students who are obviously very new to developing whatever it is, the space that they want to work in. But we find those projects which, are willing to work with the student. Yeah, the student has the time and the enthusiasm and an early sort of skill set, some skills there, but it's okay for them to work on sort of, those more sort of projects.
Yeah, great. Because, as a volunteer, you might not know whether you're good or whether you have the, really high level of skills that you might think might be required by an organization, but, you might just want to give a bit of time. And, you might be super good, but I guess as a volunteer, you might not know how good you are either. So you might want to have a go at something that you can do. And I guess the time commitments are kind of part of the project descriptions, are they? So people would know.
Yeah, and it's really flexible. On average, it'll be a 20-hour project that's needed to be completed in a month. People being able to give 5 hours a week to work on a particular project. across the 4 years of operation, we've seen that that's the standard.
Right. That's a pretty chunky, project, isn't it?
What do you mean?
Like 20 hours over a month. For some people that would be a lot of time, but it sounds like it's impactful work because it's,
we find that, I mean, it depends. Everyone's different, and with work, you've also, got a family, particularly like a young family. Then finding 5 hours can be challenging, but I think a lot of people are driven by, the passion to complete the project and say so Tuesday evening, I'm going to spend an hour working on that and get started. And again, I just think getting started is the biggest part. Once you get started, all of a sudden you're on a roll and you can't put it down and you want to complete that 20-hour project. But find a few hours at the weekend. Perhaps the next week you're just too busy, but the following week you can put in another 5 or 6 hours. And so we find that that's a comfortable amount of time for people to complete projects. We have smaller projects. We have 5-hour projects. We have certain projects where charities just want 2 hours of mentoring support from a senior business individual.
Yeah, wow, that's good. Yeah. So it is good. It is good to know that there are big, impactful, meaty jobs. It's also really good to know, particularly for people who aren't really sure and just want to give it a go, that there's a something that's not too huge, too daunting, not too much time, that they can try it and go, you know what, that was great, or it's not for me. I guess that's fine as well. But knowing that those options are there is really great.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that universities and businesses, that's where you guys are able to make money to run this social enterprise, that you're looking, or you're offering the services of the platform to large organizations who want to provide that their staff or with that sort of ability to give back. Is that the premise?
Yeah, well, there's an increasing emphasis within the business world, as you would know pretty well, on purpose, on not just making a profit, but also supporting the community in which you operate, the environment, whatever it might be. Businesses are focused on corporate social responsibility, CSR. They know that it's not just a nice thing to do. It comes back to building positive brand awareness. It comes back to your staff feeling more fulfilled and wanting to stick around in your organization, your customers more likely to buy your products or use your service. So it's a very, very powerful tool that impacts your bottom line. And one of the biggest problems with businesses, particularly with volunteering, a lot of businesses have a volunteering program, but the engagement is so low. It's just a low percentage of staff that actually volunteer. And a big problem is finding enough and relevant opportunities for staff to complete. So Vollie works with businesses, plugs this business into our network of charities, our many different opportunities. We source lots of new opportunities from our charity partners specific for these businesses. Encourage their staff to sign up, track all of that impact data so the business knows exactly how they're performing. And that's a big problem for businesses, because I've spoken to so many over the last few years, and when I say to them, well, how are you performing? What does your impact look like? You say you stand up for the environment, but what does that look like? And most businesses will say, oh, well, we don't really track our impact, but we know it's important. So, we've made sure that we do that really well. And
you can track it, report back.
And we work with universities. It's that same sort of proposition, but of course for students, they want the work experience. By connecting them with these work experience opportunities, we increase their job readiness and their employability, which is something very important to universities.
Fantastic. That's really great, Matt. Thanks for sharing that. All that about Vollie. I think it's not a blatant plug, but something that can have an impact, and also provide our listeners with the knowledge of how it might make it easier to do something that maybe they've been wanting to do which is volunteering. So volley.com.au to check out Vollie.
Yeah.
So Matt, just conscious of time, and it's been a great chat. We could talk for a very long time, but this concept of purpose, volunteering is obviously and running this platform to create change is something that's become important for you. But the idea of purpose is something that is different for everybody. It changes as well as we go through life. I don't want to presume that it's very obvious about what your purpose is. So I do want to ask you, how do you define your purpose right now?
Right now, my purpose is to do what I can with the skills I have, to encourage others to make a positive difference and break down those barriers to entry. I learned through volunteering, physically turning up, putting the t-shirt on, shaking the collection tin, that my time only stretches so far, obviously every week, every month, each year. And so if I can commit that time to enable others to make a difference and feel great about it, then that's what's most important to me. And that's how that's my relationship with purpose. And if I can look at a particular industry like volunteering and think, well, this doesn't work really well and this could be better, if I commit my time to try and solve that problem as much as I possibly can, which will then enable more wonderful things to follow, then that's good, and that's enough for me, certainly at this stage, to be able to make a positive difference.
That's awesome. Great. Thanks for sharing. It's always good to hear, and we always ask our guests what their purpose is, just because, one, we care, but secondly, it's nice to just reflect on how you're reflecting on your purpose, and as I said, they change. So awesome stuff, mate, on building Vollie and creating that change and adding that value to charities, which I'm sure they value immensely. Great to chat. Thanks for sharing your story, and I look forward to catching up very soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, mate. I really appreciate being on the podcast. It's been a really great conversation. Thank you.
Awesome. See you later. Thank you for listening to this episode. Our aim is to share the knowledge with as many people as possible, so please share it with everyone you know. And if you're enjoying the show, please subscribe and visit our website, richwithpurpose.com.au, to get access to all our free resources. See you next time.